from Jesus, I learned to love everybody. And I can learn from everybody. I don't know that I've met a person anywhere, anytime that I couldn't learn from. And knowing how greatly I'm forgiven and how flawed I am, I think allows me to walk into any gathering and say, these are people just like me. And to go with a willingness to learn, a gladness to love, and a thankfulness that I get to share the world with them. I wanted to write songs about people in my hometown, which is now Hamilton. In some sense, I feel like I have dual citizenship with Hamilton and Columbus. But I thought, I'm going to write some songs about my hometown because people ask me a lot about it when I travel. And this was my idea. I'm going to find 7 people who live within 5 miles of my front porch. And I'm going to interview them, and I'm going to write a song about each one of them. Some of them I knew a little bit, some of them I knew rather well, some of them I did not know at all. But I asked them if I could interview a conversation, and did so, and then wrote a song about them. All of them, when I suggested that I was going to write a song about them, guffawed at the idea. There's nothing about my life you could write a song about, they would say. And I didn't promise them that I could, but I had a hunch that if I lived attentively to their conversation, their story, I could. One of those 7 people was Benjamin Floyd. Benjamin Floyd was an elderly African-American gentleman. I had known him for a while, used to stay up night cooking barbecue with him. He lived 2 miles east of my porch. And so I spent a New Year's Eve recording a conversation with him. And in the course of the conversation, he quoted the Bible a lot. He was in his 80s at the time. But he also shared with me that he could not read. And so at the end of our interview, I asked him, I said, how do you know the Bible so well if you can't read? And he said, since 1943, I've been going to Long Street Church. And I said, where is it? He said, it's right around the corner on 208. And it's a building that I had driven by thousands of times and didn't even know that it was a functioning gathering place. So I said, well, could I come visit y'all sometime? And he said, the doors of our church are built on welcome hinges. Whosoever shall may come. You come anytime you want. And so a couple of weeks later I went. That was 5 years ago, and I've been attending there ever since. And I don't know that I've ever enjoyed a church experience more. I have been asked on a number of occasions, would you come to a hospital room and sing a song for someone who is very sick or dying? I can't remember what I would have sung on those occasions. But whatever song I sung to that soul at that moment was the most important song I ever wrote. I played a concert one night in Montgomery, and there was a young couple there, and they said, we wanted to bring our child to the concert because she listens to your lullaby CD every night. And she's 5 years old now. Every night she has listened to your CD since the day she was born. But we didn't think she could sit through a concert, so we didn't bring her. And I said, well, it'll take me just a few minutes to break down, but where do you live? And they told me where they lived, and I said, well, I will be there shortly. And we went to their house, and this little girl was asleep in her bed. And I pulled up a chair next to her bed, got my guitar out, and started to play. And she woke up. I don't know what I sang, but that was the most important song I ever wrote. And that's the glory of this work, is that realizing these little points of intersection with living souls where I can share whatever song that might bring gladness or provoke thought or bring healing or comfort to somebody. At that moment, that's the most important song that I ever wrote. A few years ago, though, a friend of mine called me. His father had just passed away. And he strongly encouraged me to spend time with my dad. He knows that I love and respect my dad greatly. So I called my sister, who does all of my management for me now in the music end of my life. And I said, our goal for the next year is to cut my income in half and let me be home twice as much. And so that slowed my life down considerably in terms of travel. And the last 5 or 6 years, my travel has tapered off. When my brother got sick particularly, it slowed down a lot. Gary started having some headaches and becoming extremely forgetful. He was a specimen of good health. But in June, they diagnosed him to have brain cancer, a glioblastoma, and he lived exactly 365 days after that. So we had a good year with him. It was the best year of my life, largely because my brother was absolutely a lovable person and a loving person. He was, and in some ways still is, my best friend. He was my hero, my mentor. We were going to grow old together. So when I say it was a wonderful year, don't misunderstand me to say that it wasn't a painful year. Also it was. But as Ron Anderson said in his interview a couple of weeks ago, there was a great clarity that came to that season of life for me. Up to that point, like most of us, I was on a typical day going in 100 directions. But when Gary got sick, I called my sister and I said, cancel everything that I've got until either he gets well or he passes away. And for those 365 days, there was only one thing every single day that mattered to me, and that was, how can I love my brother? And so I spent 24 hours a day in his presence, almost with no exception for that year. It was wonderful because Gary was such a wonderful soul. It was that way because of my friends and the people who loved Gary and our family, and also because the hope of the gospel became real to me in a way that it never had quite been before.
In what way? In what way, Allen?
People have asked me sometimes, did I learn anything through that experience? I don't know that I learned anything new from Gary's passing, but the things that I already knew became real to me. The hope of the gospel, the fact that life is not just in this world, it's not just the here and now, that became very real to me. The fact that joy can coexist with deep, deep, deep grief became real to me. I've read that in the book, but those became real to me. The fact that my brother can now be physically absent from me, but I can live with a sense of his presence, that became real to me. That's the hope of the gospel. My brother lived with a keen sense of his mortality. He used to sign his letters sometimes, perhaps today, as a reminder to me that we never know when life here ends. But I think that he lived, as C.S. Lewis once said, with a belief that one day the door that we have been knocking on all of our lives will one day open to us. I was very content with my job, loved my work as a musician. But some people approached me a few months ago when Judge Hartley announced her retirement and asked me to consider running for this position. And I politely, gratefully, and emphatically told them that I was not interested. But they persisted, and I told them, well, I'll talk to the judge. I'll explore a little bit about the job to find out what's involved. And I did those things and just found my heart being warm toward the possibility. I did not run for any political aspirations that I might have. I have none, never have, and I don't think I ever will. I didn't need to build a career or a resume or anything, because I did very much and do very much enjoy music as a vocation. But as I started finding out about what the job involved, I saw it as an opportunity to serve a community that I really, really love. And that's why I threw my name in the hat. Now I'm coming to the courthouse, to a world of lawyers and judges and clerks and government officials.
And everyday people taking care of their business.
Everyday people taking care of their business. And for this particular court, vulnerable people who need someone to help them take care of the business. I was drawn to this particular office. I don't think there's another one in the building that I would have tossed my name in the hat for. But this is a place that helps vulnerable people. Probate means somebody has died. If somebody dies without a will, they need an estate administered. Well, 2 years ago, I had to come here to probate my brother's will. And I was served very compassionately and professionally by the judge then, Martha Hartley. Already in the first 2 weeks, there have been a dozen people who have come in to probate or administer estates. People come here to have guardianships carried out by the court. Those are vulnerable situations a lot of times. This court handles involuntary committals when people are a threat or a harm to themselves or their families.
Mental health issues.
Mental health issues, domestic violence issues are handled through this court in part. So this is a place.
You also handle DUIs in this court.
DUIs, traffic court. Compassion looks a little different, I think, obviously, in that situation. But I hope that anyone who comes to this court while I'm here will, first of all, say the judge knew what he was doing. He did it very competently, very professionally, did it excellently. But I would like to think, and I know this sounds probably naive and sentimental to some people, that they will leave feeling, sensing, that man really cared about me.